Welcome everyone, and thank you for being with us today for Lifetime's Adoption Q&A webinar for adoptive parents. My name is Kim King and I am co-hosting with Libby Denniston, and we are very excited to be with you here for this next 60 minutes or so where we get to answer the questions that are on your minds, on your hearts, to help you become as informed as possible as you are moving forward through the adoption you've planned, or moving forward with exploring adoption, or starting to just take some of those first few steps in getting established and developing your adoption plan. No matter where you are in your process, you are welcome here and your questions are welcome as well. There are a few ways that you can get in touch with us if you would like to connect directly one-on-one with us versus a webinar format. You can call us with questions if you are not sure how to get started, you're not sure if right now is the right time to get started, then just give us a call at 1-800-923-6784, or you can email us adopt@lifetimeadoption.com. That's adopt@lifetimeadoption.com. You can also go to LifetimeAdoption.com and request information. Fill in the question there and request information to be emailed to you. No matter how you reach out to us, we will be glad to hear from you and to meet you where you are and help you explore the next steps. If you are looking at Lifetime and you want to take a step with us, the first thing I would always recommend is fill out the application on our website. There is no obligation if you should apply with Lifetime. We're not expecting that you've already made a lot of decisions and that you're ready to go right now. It's a great first step to submit your application on our website at lifetimeadoption.com/apply, because that gives us so much more to just to know about you and to understand where you're coming from, so that, hey, maybe we're the right place to explore further and partner together and pursue your adoption with you, or maybe we can point you in the right direction, or at least give you some tips, pointers, and answers to help you kind of navigate and shape your plan, whether you end up working with Lifetime or elsewhere. So lifetimeadoption.com/apply is where you can fill out the free application on our website. We have no application fee, and we do our best to provide a response for you within 1 to 5 business days. And of course, after you've applied, keep an eye on your phone and email, because you will hear from us when let me back up. When you submit your application through our website, you will receive an automated email with information, and that lets you know, hey, it went into the system. Then, as our applications coordinator is actually processing, and a human here at Lifetime is actually looking at your application, we've received the data you've shared with us, and we're getting the file set up, and we're going to have it reviewed by Lifetime's review committee. The applications coordinator will actually make contact with you. She'll reach out by phone, email, or text to let you know that we are starting the processing for you within Lifetime, and then you'll have another response with us within 5 business days. One thing that kind of can cause a delay with our application is if people aren't sure how to submit the required application photo. So if you're not able to upload it directly from the website at the end of your application, you can always just email it to us. Finish the application, the text portion, clicking on all the answers and everything in the application, and then just open an email and attach a photo that way. And you can send that to adopt@lifetimeadoption.com and just say, this is my application photo, and include your name and the full name, first name and last name of the application. Or you can email it to me, Kim@lifetimeadoption.com, and I'll be happy to get that over to the applications coordinator so we can give you feedback and avoid delay. And even after you've submitted your application, if you have questions, you don't have to wait to hear from us to get more questions answered. So we have an open door policy. You can also get in touch with us and be a part of the Lifetime conversation on Facebook at facebook.com/open.adoption. So those are a few ways that you can get in touch with us and let us help you explore further.
I want to add Instagram to the mix too, because
This is Libby again, by the way, for those of you who may not have been on when I introduced myself before. We've only been doing Instagram for really seriously for just under a year, and so we were really excited to see over 1,000 followers last week. So if you're on Instagram and you're not yet following Lifetime, I invite you to look up Lifetime Adoption Center and you'll find us. And sometimes we even post things that we don't have over on our Facebook too, so you may get a little extra goodie here and there. But I was also typing, some of you may have seen, if you're online or using the app, you could have seen some of the links that I was popping up as Kim was sharing all of this information. If it's easier for you to message on Facebook, shoot us a message, because one of our team will see that and at least direct you to the person in the office that would be best equipped to email or call you personally and get that question worked out for you too. So lots of ways to stay in touch. It always surprises me a little bit, Kim. Communication is just, so important in life, but especially when it comes to your adoption, you don't want to underestimate the power of communicating clearly, even when you're just communicating that you don't really have an update, or maybe you have a hurdle or something that sets you back. If we know where you're at in the process, we know how to help you too. So it's always okay to call and say, I'm not sure who to ask about this. Can you get me to the person who can help best? Whether you're already working with Lifetime or you're just thinking about adopting, the ladies in the office who answer the phone, they are friendly and they're going to help you get the best direction. And we all, Kim, we constantly are talking about this inside our office too, but just to get a sneak peek behind the scenes, all of us are very open with each other. There's not any huge walls between people that we can very much shout out even, who can help with this kind of thing. So we can get you the help you need. If the person that you talk to initially isn't sure how to direct you, she will find the person who can. So I just want to encourage all of you, don't hold back. But today we have our Adoption Q&A webinar, and these are so fun because we can cover a variety of topics, and we learn from each other. So even if you are maybe today just thinking, you know what, we've been trying to conceive for 3 years, and it's time for us to start thinking about other options, but we aren't sure that we're ready to start adoption yet. Maybe you're on that path and you're just sort of taking one step to explore it further. Maybe you're all the way on the other path of, I already know for sure adoption is in my future. It's just a matter of finding the right help to get me there. And then I know there are some of you on here who are currently waiting with Lifetime. So it's great to have this mix because all of you will ask questions and learn from each other too. So we really want to encourage participation. And again, you can type in the questions box on your screen and put in a comment, even if you have something that could add on to a question that we're discussing. Maybe you have experience in that area or something. Please feel free to comment and type as we go forward today. So, Kim, I got an email before the webinar, and then I was so excited to see her pop up here that she joined us live for the webinar. So I hope that this will help not only the couple who asked, but also I know that this is a popular topic for people who are thinking about adopting. And I will just add, before I bring this question up, this is also a question that sometimes comes back into play when you're actively waiting to adopt. So even though you've once had the confidence that this would not be a hurdle, it naturally comes back, especially as birthdays come. So the question says, my husband and I are concerned about adopting at our ages. I'm in my mid-40s, he's in his mid-50s. Do you think that will decrease our chances of adopting? So Kim, I know you hear this question a lot, but I kind of had it on my heart anyways, because last week we got to talk a little bit about how birth mothers see adoptive parents, and that first impression and the kind of the information they're taking in just by looking at a couple. But I know that for a lot of families, they worry about, ages. Like, my friends all had their babies at 25 and now I'm 45. Is there any hope for me? So how can we help this family and maybe the other people on here who really identify with this worry?
Well, I know here at Lifetime, we always say how we look at everything as a whole.
there isn't really very much concrete, like, there aren't concrete boundaries that you have to fit within in order for us to feel confident we can help you. So when it comes to age specifically, that's only one part of what makes you who you are. There are a lot of other things that are going to shape your adoption plan, such as what your preferences are, how broad or how specific your preferences are, what kind of profile you create. Does it show an active, dynamic couple who's ready to get down and, play with a toddler and run around and tote around a 6-month-old and stay up at night with a newborn? How you present yourself really matters in your profile, and we help adoptive parents make their best impression to show who they really are and what that child's life will be like. So the profile matters, your preferences matter. Your age is only one component that Lifetime looks at, and we actually do not have you put your age, like your year, how old you are, in your profile. Now, sometimes birth moms will state a specific decade of age range that they're open to. Sometimes they will have no decade or age category that they're looking for. So if it doesn't come up with her and she sees your profile and she just loves you guys and can totally see her child with you, then that's going to work. She feels comfortable with you. Of course, we're not trying to conceal your age, but we're not putting it out there as, here is a 56-year-old person. Right. We find that it's not really necessary to do that. We have helped families in their 20s, 30s, 40s, and some couples in their early 50s. I would say it does help you that you're not both in your 50s. And some couples have started with us in their early 50s and become mid-50s, obviously, because time goes by and adoption takes time, and our average match time is about 6 to 18 months, although it could take longer, it could be faster. So your age may change while you're adopting, of course. But that's just, only one thing that we look at, and it's one thing that maybe some birth moms are looking at, but not all, and it's not the only thing they're looking at. So they're really more concerned about values, lifestyle, how active, healthy you are, and it's not like you're in the 60s or 1960s or 1970s where if you were like 55 years old, you're basically a senior citizen and you're just retired sitting home knitting. It's not like that anymore. I meet such active, inspirational people who are 10, 15 years older than I am, and, they're so active, and it's very encouraging. And I think the decades, who we are at these decades has really changed now with everything we know about being healthy and how we can take care of ourselves. People are living a lot longer. People are living more active lives at later ages. Not only that, but with age, there's time under your belt. There's experience under your belt. I had a family tell me, which was so insightful, that, I wouldn't be the parent I am now if I was to become a parent when I was only 20. If I had become a parent when I was in my 20s, I don't think I would have had the patience that I feel a child needs. They just knew that about themselves, and now they've gotten to a place professionally and financially and just relationship-wise, marriage-wise, and just their self-awareness, their patience, their grace, their spiritual development has changed so much now that they are at this age that they actually have a lot more that birth moms will identify and connect with. So, that's the way I see it with age, and we'll look at everything as a whole. If you have not applied, then please do so, and we will give you our feedback and take a look at everything and let you know if there's a possibility we could help with your adoption.
Thank you, Kim. I know sometimes we even get the same comments from people in their 20s, because they might look at other parents hoping to adopt and think, gosh, we seem really young compared to them. Is that going to hold us back at all? And again, I love that you were just saying, it's really about what a birth mom sees in you and how she envisions her child's life merged with your life. And that varies woman to woman. We just completed an adoption with an older than average birth mom. So she actually was identifying more with the older couples. But then on the other hand, there are, 19-year-old birth mothers who see stability and maybe even the family that they'd wish they'd grown up with in their family when they look at a couple in their 40s, for instance. So if you recognize yourself in that question we started off with, and you've been thinking, well, that's really kind of the reason I haven't applied yet, is because I'm not even sure it's possible. Help us learn more about you and your adoption goals before you just kind of ace yourself out because you think that you're out of age. So great. Kim, is there anything you want to add to that before? I love that you talked about how we look at the application as a whole too.
Right. I mean, this same kind of perspective goes for a lot of questions adoptive parents have, where it's like, am I going to be successful? Would a birth mom pick me if? And they'll state like a certain characteristic. If I already have a child, if we've only been married a couple years, if I'm going to keep working, if I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom, if this, if that, and usually what people are concerned about really isn't something that becomes a barrier, if that makes sense.
Right. It's so hard. I feel like the older I get, the harder it gets to tell how old people are. I just went out with, I had a friend, she just turned 33. I'm a little bit older than she is, but she wanted to go out for her birthday, and there was a couple people around the table that I hadn't met before that were in her circle. And one of them, I thought they were in their early 20s, just because of the way they looked and some of the things they were talking about and acting, and come to find out that they're actually older than my friend, but younger than me. So they're in their mid-30s, and it just surprised me. So you can't tell these days. It's just it's up to a birth mom to see in you what is right for her child. And like you said, we don't put super strict identifying information in a profile to confirm. So Kim, I'll just share from working with birth mothers. Sometimes they will say, sometimes it's just so great when this happens. They'll say, I want a young couple, and they'll go on and on about how that's important to them, that they choose a couple who can get down on the floor and play with them, or take them to sports games, or hit a ball with them in the yard, or, just be an active, involved parent. And then she'll pick families online that are in their 40s. And, by stereotypes, you would think, she'd ace them out. But she can't tell. She can't tell if they're 30 or 40 because their lifestyle is exactly what she was looking for. But then when there are times when the birth mothers want, when it's very important to them, and maybe they even will verify by asking you, how old are you? Lifetime's never going to put a family in a position where we're trying to sneak them in under the wire. If a birth mom says, I don't want to look at anyone over the age of 40, and then we're sending her people who are 45, 49, 51, we don't want that family in the position of having to say, oh yeah, I just turned 49 last summer, and she's going, what? That's 9 years over my cutoff. Why does Lifetime even send you? We don't want to put anybody in that position. So just know we honor that, but most birth moms don't preface it. They don't usually say specifically that they want, only in the 20s or only in the 30s or something like that.
And I would say also, as you get older, you just really want to prioritize. It's so important to prioritize your adoption. You don't have like 15 more years of a window of time to where adoption would be feasible. Your window is smaller in order to, complete those steps and be chosen by a birth mom. And many organizations will have age cutoffs. Lifetime doesn't technically have an age cutoff, but it is one of the factors we look at, like we've been saying. I just wanted to add this on that, time is of the essence. As you are clearly aware, we're all clearly aware of our ages, and no, we're not getting any younger. And sometimes people are adopting at an older age because it's taken a long time to realize that adoption is their path to becoming parents, or their family isn't complete and they're looking to complete their family at this stage, or maybe they met later in life and they really didn't have that opportunity to be a couple adopting together because they only met, by the time they were 40, 45 years old. So here they are,
Yeah.
and adoption is the way to become parents. There was a follow-up question that says, as we're, talking, we're pretty much referencing birth moms. Are our services exclusive to newborns or infants? So yes, well, no, we're not exclusive to just newborns, but yes, we are talking about birth moms because we only deal with private adoption, meaning a voluntary relinquishment where the birth mom is choosing adoption for her child, or whichever placing parent it is. If it's a birth father choosing it, or if it's the grandparents who are able to legally choose and make an adoption plan because they have the legal right to do so, well then that's the type of adoption we work with. From time to time we will have babies that are already born, toddlers, school-age children, but with private adoption in the U.S., voluntary relinquishment, meaning it's not international, it's not an orphan in another country. Okay, it's not foster adoption where 3, 4, 5 years have gone by and it's been identified that this parent can no longer parent, so the state has come in, removed the child from that family, and the child is now available for adoption. So the child is naturally going to be older by the time all those steps have been completed. Well, with private adoption, most women who are considering this are considering it from when they're pregnant. And even if they place later, it may have been something they had considered while they were pregnant. But I know, Libby, you've worked with so many women over the years that have all different perspectives of why they're choosing adoption. So maybe you can shed a little more light on why infant adoption is a little more common and maybe why we are starting to see a few more older ones too.
Well, the reality is it's just never too late for adoption. And there are so many reasons that women think about adoption or choose adoption, and that could be its own webinar. When I think, I wanted to add to this a little bit. This wasn't exactly the question, but it brought to mind another debate that comes up sometimes, especially for people as they start joining adoption groups and talking about the different types of adoption, that when we're talking about birth mothers, we're talking about the biological parent of the child. And sometimes there's debate over expectant mother versus birth mother, and we all kind of have our own experience with that. But the reason we generalize it more as a birth mother is because it's not always just a pregnant woman. That if we were to say expectant mother and she's calling us about a 9-month-old, she's long since been expecting. That's not her story anymore. So
good point.
When we talk about birth mothers, any child who's placed through adoption has a birth mother, even if it was through foster care internationally. If you adopted a child not born of your body, there is a birth parent somewhere on the other side of that child's story. So no matter what type of adoption you pursue, there's always going to be questions about how do you help the birth mother, whether that's that the child was taken through foster care. There's still the question of birth parent rights and what contact or relationship or information do I get about my child's birth parents. In international adoption, I've actually heard that there is a slow movement happening where some countries are offering a little bit more information about the birth parent history. So even if you're pursuing international adoption, you may still be asking questions about birth parents. But certainly when it comes to Lifetime's average adoption, birth parents, I mean, that's our focus, is open adoption, private adoption, that it's personal between you and your child's birth mother. Typically the mother's involved. Sometimes you get birth parents or maybe just birth father, but reasons that she chooses adoption. Sometimes that she financially cannot provide for one child or another child in her life. Maybe she had goals like, we just came out of spring and saw a lot of really darling, beautiful graduation photos for Lifetime babies, but also just personally, I know most of us have seen graduation photos all over our Facebook feed. So there may be a woman who's pregnant and thinking, I didn't plan on having children. Now I'm headed to college. How am I going to take a child to college with me and still maintain my goals? I have a scholarship. You know, I've already planned this out. So she might be thinking, I don't want to interrupt my plans, because then it also means I'm going to be a distracted parent. There may be a reason there that she wants to pursue college now versus trying to muddle through as a single mom, living in her mother's house, working a job so she can pay for diapers and everything else. Sometimes you may get even engaged couples or couples who have been together a long time, but they just are not prepared for whatever reason, financial, maybe just work situation. There's just so many different reasons why women choose adoption. Sometimes it's those worst case scenarios, like maybe she was assaulted and this pregnancy came out of a sexual assault and she didn't even get a say about this happening. And she still wants to carry the pregnancy and give this child a fresh start through adoption. A lot of the women who call us may have strained relationships with their family or with their parents, and so when they think about their support network or the people in their life to help them, it's pretty limited. So they feel like, yeah, I could handle it, but I'm not even sure just some of the basics, like I can't be in two places at one time, so how's my child going to get picked up from daycare when I'm still working a second shift to make ends meet? So she may be logistically looking at, who do I have in my life to come through on help? Gosh, what else do I hear? You know, a lot of times it's just it's a timing issue. Sometimes the women don't have the exact reason to explain exactly where they're coming from, but when they share their story, it's just a matter of the timing has overlapped with another stressful time going on in their life, and they often have a feeling of inability to be the stable parent that their child needs, that they want for their child in the long term. So why this is so interesting is because a big part of what I do at Lifetime too is also help other people who support pregnant women to learn how to bring adoption up, because you never know who adoption could be right for. But a lot of people don't know it still happens. So a big thing that we do at Lifetime is to make sure that the education is out there so that these women can decide for themselves. Because there really is no wrong reason to choose adoption. And I always say, if you can imagine the possible worst reason to choose adoption, is probably still a good reason to choose adoption. Because in the end, it comes down to getting that child into a loving, stable family where they're going to grow up, you know, with their needs met and beyond. But some of you may find that your child's birth mom picks you or picks adoption because you're the right answer. And so that's what's beautiful about adoption today, is that these birth mothers can choose their child's adoptive parents, and that's such a gift, because you get to bring this child into your life knowing that this birth mother chose you for her child. I mean, that's just, what an honor to have that as part of your story. But you could be the very reason that she goes from, oh, I'm sort of thinking about adoption, to, you know what, if it's these people, I'm absolutely on board with adoption. I want to do an adoption with these people. So you turn adoption from this vague solution into this positive direction that she wants to take her child and her own future. So I feel like that probably over answered your question, Kim.
It's okay.
Just I
think it's all good information. Yes, and it's really good. I think it's good to dive into the birth mom perspective in adoption, because it's obvious to research the process and the point of view of adoptive parents. It's a little less obvious to learn about adoption from the birth mom's point of view, and we really encourage that because obviously without birth moms, these adoptions aren't taking place. It's the birth mom that makes all that difference in our families becoming parents or growing their family and having that little brother or sister for the child that they are already parenting. There's another question here that says, this might be a little bit more of a lifetime specific question. That's totally fine. She says, but I heard a podcast that referenced Lifetime as a facilitator. Is Lifetime an agency or a facilitator? With the word facilitator getting mixed reviews in the adoption world, we wanted to double check. I think that is a really good question. And it is a question I myself have answered in a variety of different ways. It just kind of depends on what I know about the family and what I know is their concern. I would say the umbrella of answering this question is research anyone you're considering working with, because there are good and bad facilitators, there are good and bad attorneys, there are good, just because someone, let's say, is a doctor and is approved to perform surgery does not mean that there's someone you want to do surgery for you. So it's very important to do the research into anyone you're considering, not just based on the label. Of course, know what their function is in your adoption, what services are they providing, what else, if anything, are you going to need outside of them. I know we guide families through a complete understanding of that. Now, with Lifetime, we started as a facilitator in 1986, and Marty Caldwell, our founder, has since then also opened a licensed child placing agency in the state of Florida. So we are truly nationwide, and a birth mom can choose a family in our program from anywhere in the U.S. If she is in a state that requires, hey, any birth mom in our state has to be assisted by an agency, we follow that. So we have our agency office assister, and we all work together as a team. If you're in a state that is facilitator friendly, you'll be technically under the facilitation. If you're in a state that's more agency oriented, you're going to be working as an agency family under Lifetime, all with the same approach, all with the same outreach, all with the same benefits. Either way, no matter if you're with an agency or facilitator, you're going to need the same ingredients to make your adoption come together. You're going to need your home study. You're going to need someone to do your legal work. You're going to need some outreach, birth mom support and screening, and someone to guide you and birth mom through the successful adoption. So you just have to make sure all those pieces of the puzzle are present so you have a great team. Here at Lifetime, since we work nationwide, let's say it's a family in Texas. Well, they're going to have a Texas home study sent over to us. And then once we get the match in place, we're going to make the referral for the right legal services, because the birth mom could be from anywhere in the U.S., and we're going to act according to what state she's in. So I hope that that helps. Let me know, chat back if that helped answer your question or if you have a follow-up question. But there are definitely good and bad agencies, good and bad facilitators. It's just really important to get to know the one that you are considering, do the research, and get your questions answered.
I am glad we could talk about that, Kim, because I think there's just, it is funny. It is funny in adoption what buzzwords create a negative or positive response. And generally speaking, most people use the word agency, but there are attorneys who do adoptions, and there are people
There are
who
consultants, coaches.
Right. There are people who just look for a birth mother on their own, and then all they need is legal work. So really it comes down to, what are your adoption goals and what services will you need to reach that goal? And some families have different checklists. So just make sure that you're not only working with someone who won't compromise the legalities of your adoption, but that is also meeting the needs that you will have through your adoption, including how your child's birth mother is supported through the process. So good. Let's see, where did I put that question? Okay.
I wanted to ask you a question, Libby. Okay. There's a question on here I wanted you to answer, because you have such great insight for this, because you do a lot of our after hours support, like that 24/7 support that we offer. A lot of times that's Libby doing on-call, doing the holidays, doing the weekends. Of course, there's a team here, but Libby has a lot of experience with this throughout the years. And here's the question. It says, for drop-in-the-lap situations, and you probably want to explain what that is, for drop-in-the-lap situations, do you typically present birth mom with profiles of families closer to her geographic location? Does it differ if the baby is already born?
Oh, I've seen it go all of those ways.
Right.
Now, if Lifetime took a call and time was of the essence, like that, there's so many reasons that could happen. So if for some reason, you know, it was a matter of somebody needs to get here in the next blank hours, and we're looking going, you know what, I mean, a flight can get someone there in a matter of hours, but how long until that flight leaves? So then that can sometimes push it out, you know, 12 hours or so. So we may look at a closer proximity and think, okay, you know, who's within a 2-hour driving distance of this hospital? But I know part of this question too was, would she still be presented with profiles to choose? So, you know, in all fairness, every Lifetime family is featured on our website. So if she's looking online and thinking, I just gave birth or I'm about to give birth and this family intrigues me, we're not going to say, oh, you know, they're halfway across the country from you, so they're out of your choice. If she's willing to wait for them to get there, then we'll move things along so that she can talk with them. But if she says, oh gosh, yeah, I didn't think about how long it would take them to get here, I really need someone here, you know, like now, then we may have to talk with her about families that are closer to her. These days, I have not seen that come into play as much as it used to. I think that's because more people are comfortable traveling now than they were, say, 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. It's so much easier to go online and get a lot of different airfares. And I mean, you can Google. Today I was looking up, my friend is driving from Louisiana to California, and I was looking up just how long that took. But when I put in New Orleans to San Francisco, it gave me flights. So I didn't even have to type in anything specific. I just put in 2 cities. And Google wanted to tell me about flights. So I just think because it's easier for people to, number one, understand how long it takes to get from A to Z, but also there are more flights. People have more access to information about the various flights available, that we've seen more people able to travel last minute, so we haven't had to shorten that window. I just want to emphasize, though, a drop-in-the-lap adoption, just for any of you who don't know that term yet, is one way to describe a last-minute adoption. So it could mean that she's about to give birth and she's on her way to the hospital, or it could mean she's already given birth. But this could also mean that she gave birth 6 weeks ago and has a 6-week-old, and even though she's not admitted in the hospital, she still wants this adoption to happen quickly. So some of this could end up kind of coming together as if it was a drop in the lap. But no matter whether you're already matched with a birth mother for the last 8 weeks, so the last 2 months, you've been getting to know a birth mother and she's had a due date that you've been looking forward to, maybe even a scheduled C-section or a date that she was supposed to be induced to give birth, or if she's just literally given birth and this is the first time you've ever heard of her, time is of the essence. So I cannot tell you how often it not only stresses us out, but it sort of makes our hearts a little nervous, because we don't want to see anyone miss out on the opportunity to adopt one of these precious babies. And when families drag their feet, it causes not only Lifetime to wonder, but it makes the birth mother and that hospital staff wonder, how serious are you about adopting? Are you really going to be there for this baby? So if you get a call it doesn't matter if you're working with Lifetime or with someone else. If you get a call and they say you need to be here by this time, do everything you can to do that, and check in along the way too, so that people know your ETA. I can't tell you how often I've spoken with nurses who are actually, I don't want to say excited, but they're very much in support of their patient who just gave birth, and they just want to help her process go as smoothly as possible and nurture her through it and make sure that they're doing everything to help what that birth mother wants to happen. That nurse wants to make sure that it goes that way. And so a lot of times they will ask us, do you have an ETA on the adopted parent? And it's just because she's also wanting to communicate with the next shift that's coming in and to have an idea of what the hospital staff can expect so that you and this birth mother can be supported. It's not about tapping their fingers like, oh, you know, how dare they keep us waiting, but it's really about this sensitive process that they want to help along. So, and I've had birth moms say too, you know, when are they going to be here? The nurse just asked me if I want to feed the baby, but I thought they were going to be here and to do that. So it really is just important because I like to say this, babies come at all hours, which is why Lifetime has a 24-hour hotline, 7 days a week, holidays too. So next week on Independence Day, we will still be answering our 24/7 hotline. But even if you knew about a birth mother already and you were looking at, well, she's not scheduled to have a C-section until July 10th, and you get a call tonight, here a week or 2 weeks early, that doesn't mean you have days to get there. That means you need to drop everything, reschedule your flights, and get there. So again, time is of the essence. But what's so cool too about today, Kim, is that technology has just blown the doors open for these birth mothers to choose adoption and have the same choices at any time before or after giving birth. So even in the hospital, they still have their cell phones. They're still looking at our website. We used to fax, but these days really we're emailing with nurses or with the birth mother herself to send PDFs of profiles of adoptive parents, to show websites. The websites that have videos make a huge impact because they can watch them right there on their phone. And that in some cases, when it's a hospital that's local to one of Lifetime's offices, we've even hand-delivered profiles and brought them right into her delivery room. So absolutely she gets a choice. It doesn't always just come down to who's closest to that hospital when she's making a last-minute plan. So I hope that clarified that, Kim.
Well, and yes, and for expectations of what is expected of you if you are a Lifetime family or considering and possibly going to be a Lifetime family, if you are home study ready, meaning your complete updated home study is in our hands, you are eligible for a drop in the lap, and we would expect, as long as everything matches, that you would do everything possible to get there by that night or by the following day if we have that amount of time to work with. So all families could possibly get a drop in the lap call at any time. It'll be Lifetime calling you, not a random birth mom. But we do all the pre-screening, get everything in order, and we can do that within a very short period of time. What a birth mom can plan with us over weeks and months, we can still take care of all those steps in a matter of a few hours and just get a family there. And, you know, the hospitals are amazed, and we get such positive feedback that we actually have families that will drop their plans for that day and prioritize their adoption and get there to this baby and to a birth mom that they just found out about. I mean, it just kind of gives you chills to know that these are happening. I would say we get drop in the laps about 2 to 3 times a month, and any home study ready Lifetime family could get a call like that. And I think too why we have more options for getting families, you know, more families have the ability to get to a drop in the lap is because of cell phones. Everyone has their cell phone in their hand, especially if they know they're adopting. It's right there. you're not really missing calls or texts from us. Back over 10 years ago, 15 years ago, we weren't really texting people, and sometimes people would be like out of reach for 6 hours, and then we'd have like their mother-in-law's phone number and she'd be trying to find them in town. But now it's like everyone is easy to access, so I think our drop in the laps probably go a little more smoothly, and birth moms really do, you know, they really are able to choose a family even at the last minute.
Mm-hmm. It's just changed so much. And we have texting now too. Sometimes we're getting birth mothers that text our number, and we're getting information that way.
Right.
We can fax online, which makes it so convenient. So
and what Libby's saying is
3 a.m. adoptions and
well, and actually now birth moms can text our hotline, not just call. And then, of course, she can text directly with her coordinator once she's with us. But if it's her first time contacting us, or all she has is our 1-800 number, she can text us through our hotline, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Great topic. And again, I mean, it really always comes down to, when does this birth mom want things to happen? And that rule of thumb applies whether she's 4 months along or that baby's already 4 months old. So, you know, some women will call in the middle of their pregnancy and they'll say, this is a very common question, how, you know, when can I start the adoption process? And the answer is anytime you want. So if she's 4 or 5 months along, she's certainly far enough along to where it's reasonable for her to get serious about considering adoptive parents. But even if she's only 8 weeks along, she can still consider families and get to know more about the process, have counseling, get more information, get her paperwork and her prenatal records all started up. So really, it's just a matter of meeting her needs, like where she's at and at her pace. So good. There was a question about our website I thought I would answer real quick here. I know our web team gets this a lot. The question is, on LifetimeAdoption.com, if our profile is currently showing up on page 12, so what they mean is they're clicking through all the families and finding theirs, so it took them 12 clicks to get there. How does it get to the first page? The answer is that our website is actually set up to randomly shuffle so that all families have a chance to be featured in different areas of the search. So on one day you might be on that 12th click, and on another day you might be on the first. And as far as I know, we don't really have a say over it. It's just random. Could even be random with every refresh that you do. If you refresh the page, it could even change to page 5 or 6 or 3. So we started doing that because a long time ago it had to be more manually done. And I used to manually change them as we wanted it. Yeah, it didn't happen as often as we wanted or needed it to. And so it's so great that it randomly does it for us now, because now families get a little different exposure, which is fun, because if I'm a birth mom and I go to LifetimeAdoption.com and I'm looking at the families, and then maybe later tonight I go and look again, I'll say, oh, I didn't see that family before. That's cool. So it, gives an opportunity for everybody to get some visibility. Good. Let's see here. You guys, I love the comments and questions coming in. We're trying to keep up with them. So, Kim, what would you say to this question? I think this comes down to what may influence how long a family waits to be chosen by the right birth mother? And this question says, since my husband is Asian and I'm Caucasian and we are open to any race of child, will we match more quickly since we are already a mixed race couple?
I would say the bigger factor is that you are open to any race, not necessarily your own racial makeup. Although I have spoken with couples that are, like, let's say he's black, she's white, or he's Asian, she's white, or whatever, one is one race, the other is another race. And then that's what they're limiting their adoption search to. Only a biracial child with that specific race makeup, because that's the child they would have had biologically, and their vision for adoption hasn't expanded beyond their vision of a biological child, that original vision, which is now, naturally going to hopefully expand and evolve to include any birth mom that they would say yes to. So I think it's wonderful that you are leaving the race open. That's probably one of the biggest factors for just helping yourself not wait as long, because you are giving the birth moms the chance to choose you without race being a factor on your end. So you're not telling her ahead of time, sorry, we're just going to not be presented to you. If you have a yes on all races and everything else matches on both sides, then she gets to view your profile and choose you. So I would say having broad preferences is the best way to just do everything possible to reduce barriers in completing adoption successfully. Now, sometimes people hear that kind of phrasing, have broad preferences so you can adopt successfully in a timely manner, and they take that to mean broaden my preferences even though I won't say yes to that birth mom. That's not what we mean. So if you're thinking, well, what can I do to increase my chances? Well, only include those that you would say yes to in the end, because you're not helping anyone if you have a yes on preferences you're not okay with. But since you're broad, with the race preference, that's wonderful. I don't think racial makeup of couples matters as much as what the couple themselves is open to. And that's a good thing, because you can't control your own race, right? So the things that you can control actually have a bigger impact, I would say, in this particular question.
Mm-hmm. I mean, again, it comes down to that choice that birth mother has in finding the right long-term solution for her baby. So there's so many different, I'm always fascinated. Whenever we feature adoption stories, I'm always fascinated by the whole question of, why did your son's birth mother choose you? What did she see in you? Because it's just so interesting, It's sort of like, I know there's times when we don't want to hear everybody's love story about how they met their spouse or something, but when someone's been in a relationship you admire, for me, I get very curious about how they met, and I want to hear, what stood out and what worked for them. And so, there's always different things that stand out. I mean, and some people are very simple about it. Like, I'll use my grandma as an example of, a very simple answer. Like, Grandma, how did Grandpa propose to you? Oh, I don't know. We discussed it. Like, for them it was so unromantic. It was just kind of the next step. And so you might find that your child's birth mother doesn't have this big, flowery, beautiful story of what just hit her like a brick about you. There wasn't some grand vision about, I just saw you and the angels sang. While another family may have a story like that, where there's just all these little details come together, and it's just so obvious that they were all led to each other. But in the end, it always comes down to this kind of this feeling that people can't really put into words of it was just the right fit. And so while there could have been things that attracted a birth mother to your family or gave her that reassurance, there may be things along the way as you get to know each other that just give her that peace that you're the right answer. So that's not to say that a mixed race family may not project a certain, what's the word I'm looking for, sort of a reassurance. You're already a mixed race couple, so adding a child to your life that does not match you in the mirror, that you can't look at each other and think, oh, we look exactly the same because we're biologically related. So when it comes to adoption, birth mothers often have that fear of, is my child going to be accepted and embraced as part of the family, or are they always going to stand out like an outcast? So a mixed race couple, or a family that's even adopted before, or even a blended family sometimes can project this. sometimes they do bring that impression of my child will absolutely be accepted in this family because they already, went outside the box to just be with each other.
Mhm.
But on the other hand, really the same could be said for any family. um, that it could be a short man with a tall wife, and this birth mother is particularly taller than average woman, and she's thinking, well, goodness, if he loved a tall woman, he's going to love this tall baby, and you just don't know. There's going to be something about each of you that is going to stand out for the right reasons, and that's what it comes down to, is the right fit, rather than feeling like it's all forced. I know this may not sound funny to some of you, but one of my earliest matches, and I say this because it's kind of the opposite of what you hear. Usually you hear about Caucasian couples adopting children that don't share race in common with them, whether the child is Hispanic or African American or Asian background or maybe Native American or whatever the mix could be. Usually you hear more about transracial adoption relating to a Caucasian family adopting a child that has a different race than their own. But in this instance, I was working with an 18-year-old Caucasian birth mother carrying twin boys. And these boys were both full Caucasian. So both birth parents were Caucasian. She fell head over heels for a full Hispanic couple. So both husband and wife were Hispanic. They were even Spanish speaking with English as their second language. And she just loved them. They lived across the country from her. She spoke with them, loved them even more. She told me later, I love the idea that my boys are going to grow up with diversity and learning Spanish and having a different culture to know about than I know here in my predominantly Caucasian neighborhood. Like, she loved that this was an opportunity she could give her boys to have a different look at the world. And they were both teachers. She loved that. Like, there was all these other things that complemented it. But I mean, I had to laugh a little bit because there are these two little boys walking around with very Latin names that probably are very, very white looking, and they're probably loved as all get out because this couple was open to adopting a child of any racial background. So it's not always Caucasian parents going to a child of a different race than their own. Sometimes it's the other way too, and that birth mom's going to choose you for the right reason. It's going to be it's going to be beautiful.
And
so, gosh,
Libby, I mean, I know it sure does. And I just want to say, we know race can be a hot topic, and we are very casual in talking about race. Why? Because it's something that's just a natural part of what we do every day we come into work. Race is a factor. It's not a hot button for us. So, you know, for us, we are discussing race in very casual terms, very lighthearted terms. We know that when you're setting up your preferences, you're thinking deeply about this. There are reasons why there are certain preferences over other, criteria that you're able to include, criteria you're not able to include, or maybe you're in the middle and you're not sure what you can include because you don't know much about other races. So these are all questions to explore. Not every family is able to be open to any race. Hopefully a family can be open to a few different options to give themselves a little more exposure beyond just one race. Searching for only one race, no matter what race that is very limiting just when you look at the data, likelihood of adopting in a timely manner. It's not really connected to the race as a topic. It's just a limiting factor. That's how we see it. So when we talk with you, you should feel comfortable to just share your perspective about, how you're coming to decisions about race, and we can give you our feedback and say, we had this family that had the same feeling, and then this is how they decided, what, we're going to be, a little more open than we originally thought, and then this is how their story turned out. So I just want to recognize we know race can be a hot topic and kind of uncomfortable for people to discuss, but for us, we're comfortable discussing it, so we want you to feel comfortable discussing it too with us.
That's so true, Kim. I mean, I cannot emphasize enough the importance of just being honest about what your adoption goals are, and that comes down to everything related to, what kind of opportunity would you feel best saying yes to. Because at Lifetime, we don't have a first, second choice, third
Right.
choice kind of thing. It's very important to us that a family not say, well, our first choice is a newborn, second choice would be a 1-year-old, and third choice would be a 2-year-old. Because if we get a birth mom calling with a 1-year-old and she's just head over heels for you, we don't want to call and have you say, well, we'd like to hold out for our first choice. We want you to be totally open. So it's not always just about race. But I love that you could bring that up, Kim, because what comes to my mind, too, is I know so many families, there's so many different things they think about when it comes to particularly the race of the child they adopt, but also the age of the child they adopt, the health of the child they adopt. There's all different factors that come into that. And we want you to be excited to say yes and not feel obligated to say yes. So please do not feel like you have to defend yourself if it's not on your heart to be open to a child of any race or to be open to a child of any age, or whatever that may be. What happens when you apply is we're going to look at that application as a whole, and we're going to just help you learn more about if Lifetime would be able to help you reach that goal, or if you would be better off going a different direction. That's what we're looking at, so that you're not waiting excessively. Like I've gotten calls from people who want to adopt specifically a 3-year-old, and that happens with us sometimes, but it's not the average adoption going on. So
Yeah, it's not the norm.
Right. If we had a dozen families only looking for 3-year-olds, well, what happens when those 3-year-olds are going on 4? Does that mean that the people looking for 3-year-olds are now not open to that? Like, it has to come down to, is this reasonable? Do we believe that you would be successful? And if you are a Lifetime family listening to this, then you can know that based on what you told us you're looking for, that we believe you will be successful. So
yes,
that's what we're looking at, not whether or not you're right or wrong for wanting to search for what you're searching for. Same thing with gender. If you're specifying, I want to only search for a boy, we may say, right now we have too many people looking for only boys. We need families open to the unknown pregnancies and the girls. So we may point you in another direction. It's not always just about race. But I did want to add on the racial comment that you made, Kim. When we say openness, we're not inferring, or I don't know if that's the right word. We're not talking about open-mindedness. So what we're talking about is just, what are you open to saying yes to? So please do not hesitate to be honest about what you're searching for, so that we can be honest about whether you'd be successful under those terms within Lifetime's program.
That's right. And the way that it kind of occurred to me a little more recently, and it's kind of funny, Libby, like when new things occur to you when you've been here for so many years. But it's like, what we're looking at is, do we see plenty of birth moms that fit within what you're yes to in your adoption, who are looking for a family like yours? And so it's got to be that whole picture, that full, if there is one obstacle, well, what else is there in the scenario to kind of counteract that obstacle, such as our first question, age. Well, are they active, healthy? They have lots of action shots in their profile, and they have a great video. They're very warm and approachable and engaging, and they're open to a variety of different factors in their adoption. So, just their age alone isn't probably going to stop them from adopting, because they have all these other things going for them.
Absolutely. It is a whole picture. No matter who you choose to help you adopt, you need to make sure that, number one, that they have the services that you need for your specific adoption, but also don't neglect to ask about how they're helping the birth mother of your future child.
Oh, yes.
You want to make sure that she is also supported, or else the stability of your adoption is going to be at risk. But then you have to look at, do they have success with the type of adoption I'm looking for? So, or would they be successful for me? So just keep taking those steps. I got a great question earlier today. It was asking, we've only been married under a year, but we've been together much longer. Should I put off applying, or should we apply now? And my answer was, apply now. And if there's some state law where they happen to live that would mean that they need to wait until they've been married a certain amount of time to complete a home study, for example, then we would help them know that too. But it's not just about one factor. How old are you, or what race are you open to, or how long have you been married? It's this whole picture of whether or not we have birth mothers calling looking for families like you, and if we believe that we would be a good way to meet your goal, to help you reach your dream. So we look forward to learning more about those of you who are just exploring. And, I hope that when families that are already waiting to adopt hear these things, that they feel reassured. Okay, yeah, we went through that process. I actually talked to Kim after I applied, so that you're kind of remembering all that you went through before, and that okay, if I'm already in the program, that means they have confidence that this is going to go somewhere positive for my dream. So,
I wanted to squeeze in one more question. I sense that you are wrapping up. I can just tell your rhythm is changing.
Well, I didn't want to keep people too long. I know.
I'm dying to answer. There are so many good questions. I'm going to try and squeeze one more in. And by the way, if your question doesn't get answered, it doesn't mean it wasn't a valid question. Just ask us it directly. Or if it's more of like something you want to hear us discuss in this format, ask it on the next Q&A, which should probably be in just a few weeks. But this is a question that I think is a really good question because it shares more about our process as we answer it. So what if more than one birth mom chooses you? Do you then have the choice between them? And I will try to answer this pretty quickly because I know we don't want to keep you too long.
I love that topic. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. I mean, the way our process works is that when that birth mom, it's pretty rare that a family is chosen by more than one birth mom at a time. It has happened. But that means she had to meet all of her requirements, send back her paperwork, get proof of pregnancy, signed medical release. She's at least halfway through, all the preferences match, she read your profile, and she's interested in you. And that happened with 2 women on the same exact day. Because on that day that a birth mom crosses that threshold of everything I just mentioned, we call you and let you know all about her. So, and then it's not very long after that, maybe like the next day or that night, you get to have a scheduled talk with her where she'll probably want to call you and let us know officially, is she matching, is she going to match with you? And at that point, we don't keep presenting you to other birth moms. So it's not likely to be chosen while you're already matched or to be chosen by 2 in one day. So,
right.
Libby, any other insight for that one? But what if it does happen? Then what?
Well, I also think that's, how would you decide? How could you really tell a woman?
I know.
No, we like her better than you.
I know.
So ultimately, it's to the benefit of your adoption that you are chosen by her. Now, I will say there have been a few times, I don't see it happen, like you said, not too often, that there may be 2 different coordinators working with 2 different birth mothers and they both like one specific family. But then again, it comes down to some of the other details, like has she completed everything that was asked of her to move the process forward? And sometimes that weeds one out. It's not to say that she didn't want to complete the information, but if, let's say this week we hear from 2 birth mothers that like the same family, and one of them's due in October and the other one is due in September. I'll try and keep this straight in my head for what I just said. Now, a family might think, well, heck, I would rather choose the birth mother due in September because that's a month sooner and I wanted a baby yesterday. But let's say that the one due in September doesn't send in her proof of pregnancy, and maybe we're still waiting on some more information about the birth father, and maybe she still needs to send in her signed medical release form so that we can pull her prenatal records and notify the hospital when she gives birth. So there may be some details pending before we can move her match forward. Meanwhile, the birth mother due in October has her paperwork, proof of pregnancy, medical releases signed, and even the birth father is sitting right next to her saying, yeah, we like this particular family. Can we talk to them on Friday? You know what? Chances are we're going to tell that family about that birth mother due in October, and they may not ever know about that birth mother due in September because she still has not completed the steps to move the adoption forward. So just remember, because a birth mother's interested in you doesn't mean she's ready to move the adoption forward.
That's a really good spin. Another insight I hadn't thought of is that this question could also go a little deeper, that could there be multiple birth moms interested in us? And yes, that does totally happen. But like Libby's saying, she's got to make it through some steps before we feel comfortable that, you know, we've worked with her to get to a certain point where, you know, we have a level of confidence, we have our ducks in a row, so to speak, before we actually give you a call and get you excited about her, which you totally should be excited when you get a call like that.
Now, if you do happen to be one of the rare instances when that happens, you have to remember, too, that birth mother may have a couple families in mind. Maybe you're one of them. Maybe she has a couple families that she wants to talk to. So we may let you talk with two different birth mothers because they also get to decide. And there, once in a while, have been times when we've said, you know, Kim, I got all your information. I saw that you liked this family. They're actually about to talk with another woman who actually just around the same time got all of her information in and is ready to talk to them. And we may give her the choice. She might insist, no, I want to talk with them. You know, and we'll try and work that. We'll try and work it out then, but it's pretty rare. Like, I've been here 12 years. I may have seen it happen like one time. Just the odds of it happening, you're not going to have to be in a position to turn one down and say yes to another, or to juggle two adoptions at the same time. I mean, whew, what a lot of work.
I know.
So, but again, this is why Lifetime handles everything case by case, person by person. So we're not just putting you into box A, B, or C, but it's, okay, what are the unique dynamics of this particular situation, and then working with what we have on that. So, because there's no one way to answer every single adoption match or question.
I think it's so cute that our list of attendees actually increased instead of decreasing, because one of our families joined us with the calendar kind of mix up, but like Libby said, we are having a... Yeah.
And so I will apologize because we sent out most of the information on tonight's webinar had the accurate time, but there was one reminder that went out that mentioned it was at 4 p.m. Pacific time, and I think that's because usually we do them at 4, but we thought we'd switch things up with it being summer and give people a different chance. But tomorrow night, just for those of you, even if you're just researching Lifetime, but certainly if you're in Lifetime's program, Lifetime hosts private webinars for families within our program. So a couple of times a month, we have additional webinars that the public never even hears about because they are only for people in our program. So tomorrow night happens to be one of those nights, and that Q&A is only for families currently waiting within Lifetime's program, and that one is at 4 p.m. Pacific. So hopefully you can make it to that one if you couldn't stay here tonight. And what's cool about those, for those of you who might be considering Lifetime as your partner along your adoption path, is that the private webinars we offer, we can go a little deeper beyond the basics, because now we're able to relate more specifically to the information you've received as part of a Lifetime adoption, so that it's more specific. And that's another great reason to apply. I get a lot of questions on social media about Lifetime's program, and if you're just starting to think about adoption, or maybe you're starting to research Lifetime and find out if that's the right answer, applying is a really great way to get more specific answers to your questions too. So it helps us better to know a little bit more about you, what you're searching for, where you live, different things like that that are pretty hard to get out in a a 15-minute initial inquiry type call. So if you take the time to apply, it allows our team, like Kim and her team, to more specifically answer so that you're not feeling like it's so generalized, but you can really know how it's going to apply to your adoption's future. So please take that time. Kim, are we ready to wrap up? I don't want to hold people back too long.
I feel emotionally ready to wrap it up now, Libby.
You're funny. You're funny. We do have a really great webinar that will be open to the public coming up. Lifetime's founder is going to come present a really sweet webinar on July 10th. It's a Monday night. That one will be at 4 p.m. Pacific. And she's going to talk about things that are kind of hot buttons, but not too many people have a lot of information about. So we're going to talk about things like post-adoption depression and those early days of being an adoptive parent when you have more to juggle than, say, an average parent who just gave birth, but now you're juggling a relationship with a birth parent, maybe a birth family, whatever that may be. The pressures to be the perfect adoptive parent can sometimes come out in difficult emotions. So we're going to talk about some of those tender subjects in July. And then also, if you missed last week's really great webinar about home studies, go to adoptionwebinar.com and check that out. The replay is up now, and it was, we featured, part of Lifetime's team is a home study expert, and so Linda shared a lot of insights and behind-the-scenes information about all things home study related. So that was really great. No matter what stage you are in the process, that was a helpful webinar. And then I wanted to add, I just heard today, I think that Lifetime's founder is also going to be on our Facebook Live video this week. So follow us on Facebook, and you can go to the little button that it says follow on, I think, most people's devices, or if you go on your computer, it says follow. You can click the arrow and drop it down and then choose notifications or settings or some kind of preferences, and make sure that if you follow Lifetime's page that you choose to get notified when we go live for every live event. That way you don't miss out. You can catch it when it's happening. So follow us on Facebook. You'll probably see Lifetime's founder go live this Friday. And then please keep in touch and let us know how we can help.
Wonderful. Well, if you do have questions, give us a call. We are open and ready to answer questions for you. And the number is 1-800-923-6784. And our email is adopt, A-D-O-P-T, adopt@lifetimeadoption.com. And the free application is online at lifetimeadoption.com/apply. If you have questions as you're navigating, just let us know. Feel free to call, text, or email us, and we are happy to help you.
Thanks, Kim. Thank you to everyone for all of your comments and questions tonight, and for making time to be here and to learn more. We know that this time you're taking really is investing in your adoption's future, and we hope it was helpful. We hope it was fruitful for you, and we would love any feedback or questions. So just reach out, tell your coordinator, or shoot us a message on the information, on the contact info that Kim just listed off, and we'll look forward to meeting with all of you again soon. Have a great evening, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.